This is the show where we spotlight Bionicle mocks from across the LEGO community and we gather them together under a specific theme to inspire you and get you building. Today we're going to be taking a look at some Barraki revamps. Let's see how some people have reimagined these awesome characters. First up today we have Eric's by Fu Min. Now, Alec was always one of my favorites, one of the standouts of the Barraki wave. You know, his spiked back design, the very captivating trans green, and I guess it's almost like a marbled lime look of both that head and the spine. The colors were just exceptional. Everything about the set was awesome, to be fair. But then to take that spiked back design and change it up so that they look like a freaking dinosaur, well, that's so unexpected. I never would have expected that kind of transition to work. But here it is, and I love it. We can see all of these spikes have just been kind of bent in kind of a U shape around the neck. And the angle that they're resting at, those spikes, they flare out in such a wild way. It adds to the scariness of this character. And, you know, just this new form, I think it really captures everything about the original set, but improves upon it tenfold. The color scheme on this mock is also fascinating. All these trans green pieces, they're all localized on the very top part of this mock. It's almost like it was cut in half, and one section was made green, the other was made silver. That's such a unique way of spreading out all these different colors. Yeah, elements of that reminds me of, say, like Godzilla. All the spikes on their back and a little bit on their head too, they glow. Maybe all the trans green could also glow when Alec is charging up some sort of elemental attack. That's a fun idea, and this is a really well executed, really original take on Alec. DV Mox presents us a revamp of Kalmar, but this mock is titled Hollow World. So Kalmar is known for his iconic tentacle weapon, the same one that of course you can see on the original set right here. But this revamp doesn't feature that tentacle weapon, or any orange for that matter. Instead, we've got two cool swords, but they're wrapped in black tentacles. You know, while I do miss the nice pop of orange that was present on the original set, I think I can really get behind this change. DV Mox is daring to be different, and he's trying something new. I like that. And you know what? I think these blades just look sick. I like that it ties into his color scheme. I like that they're using those trans red lightsaber beam pieces. It's a really good weapon. And it does still look like the kind of thing you would see on some aquatic warlord. This torso design's also quite fun, using some of these dark red fin pieces around the waist area, and then a few more are being used a little higher up around the top of the chest. The way that these shape the body just looks excellent, and I can't say I've really seen fin pieces being used in this context before. It's beautiful. What a great use of those pieces, and what a great revamp of Kalmar. Now it's time for Karapar, the Crabapar by Pakaru Builds. So here's the original set for Karapar, and we can see that he's got a fairly different body shape here on this version, but I like that. It's leaning just that little bit more into some creepy vibes. For example, I love how they've layered these Karapar armor pieces around the neck. The curvature, the red spikes. Not only does it look good, but it also looks like what you would see on actual aquatic creatures. I always love seeing that when people revamp any of the sets from the Mari wave, taking inspiration from actual sea creatures, or even taking inspiration from, you know, creatures from myth and legend that lived underwater. There's a lot you can learn from that stuff, and if you can distill qualities of those creatures into your mock, it's gonna look awesome. The asymmetrical crab claws, that's another fun detail. Especially this giant one here, adding in an extra blade that wasn't present on the original set, and then making each individual blade posable. That's awesome. This unarmored torso is also a nice touch. I think it actually makes it feel even more like a crustacean. And once again, it adds to that creepy factor, which is always a good thing to see on a Barraki revamp. Lovely work. Prydak Terra Mantis by BS Bonks is up next. So this one's a lot more radically different to the original. Here's the original set, and looking at it you can see it's a lot more shark-like. This mock, not so much. But I like the idea of making a Barraki that looks a little bit kinda crazy and strange. Yeah, the deeper you go into the depths of the ocean, you start to see some really odd, strange-looking creatures that are downright terrifying. So I think this design works well. You could do something similar for any of the Barraki. They are known as the CREEPS from the deep. It just works. Some standout pieces here include these white G2 Kopaka blades as, I guess, kind of wings, or maybe they're fins for this, like, fish-like creature to swim around with. Still, in this context, they look a little bit more kind of like bony. A skeletal fish, that's creepy. And speaking of things being bony, the legs here, they use these cricker blade pieces. The color of that certainly works well with Prydak's face. Always good to see those pieces paired together. And then we got a bunch of these large white spike pieces all over this back design. It's fantastic. This is so distinct and so unique. I love it. And now we have Pre-Pit Mantax by PGK Core Official. So remember, the Barraki were once warlords, but they were banished to the pit, and as a result of being underwater and all the mutagen and stuff, they were mutated to look the way that they look in the original sets. So it's always delightful to see people try their own unique take and imagine what these characters might have looked like before they were mutated. And I think this is a brilliant example of exactly that. This custom mask does a great job of taking what was present on the original set's mask, but make it seem a bit more like a traditional mask. Because looking at it, you can easily see how this would evolve into the final set. And it also looks different enough to not make it look too obvious that it's going to become the final version. Yeah, I like that. It's also nice to see the inclusion of some red and some dark tan. I can get behind that because, see, on his final form, he's got little tiny hints of red that are still present. So it's almost like a lot of that disappeared when he mutated. And it seems that the mutation has completely removed any traces of dark tan. Yeah, it's just fun to track that progression and see how they've changed. This is just really cool. And finally, here's Takedox by Bionicle Raijin. Man, this revamp does such a good job of taking the original Takedox set and improving on it, but not losing the essence of the original set. Yeah, they've kept the limbs looking pretty similar to how they did on the set, which was quite thin and spiddly. But they've armored it up now, and they've achieved a really lovely balance where things still look really well armored, but he still keeps that thin and skinny design. It's quite an impressive balance that they've managed to achieve there. It's also great to see that this trans blue Vaki headpiece has been included here. Of course, it came on this set, but you probably already knew that one. So yeah, the colors of this piece when they're paired with Takedox's unique armor pieces, it's a surprisingly lovely match, isn't it? They blend together perfectly. And also just how this piece is placed. The energy of two of those spikes just protruding out of the neck. It's so exciting. It gives such a brilliant flair to this mock. I also just love seeing that piece being used. I feel like it doesn't get a lot of love because it's a little difficult to use, but this might just be the best use of it I've ever seen. This mock is such a wonderful upgrade. And that's it for today's episode of the Bionicle Inspiration series. Hopefully, if you're planning on revamping any of the Barraki, this gave you a few ideas. And even if you're not planning on revamping any of the Barraki, hopefully some of the techniques that we discussed also gave you a little bit of inspiration. If you enjoyed today's episode and you liked the mocks that you saw, please check the links in the description below. I'll have links to all the mocks that I featured today. Go and check all of them out on Instagram, give them a like, give them a follow, and let them know what you think of their builds. Also in the description below are links to my own social media. You can see what I've got going on over there. And if you'd like to see your own mocks featured on the Bionicle Inspiration series, the only way to do so is to send them to the submission email that's currently on your screen right now. It's also in the description below if you want to copy and paste that email. So feel free to send me links to your social media, the name that I call you, the name that I call your mock, any images that you have of your mock. And if you want to write up some backstory, some information, put whatever kind of information you think is important. And I'll do my best to feature your mock in an upcoming episode. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Happy building, and bye for now.